In terms of sheer arrogance, Pearl was in no way inferior to the pompous parrot. That was perfectly obvious. She, too, considered herself a miracle of nature, a genius, and, after our last murder case, even some sort of a divine being. I stifled a sigh. Victoria and Hermine heard nothing of Pearl's complaint, but only her characteristic hissing, which my feline friend always emitted when something didn't suit her, which was often. Very often. I, on the other hand, was graced with the whole lament.
"Amateur's my ass," snorted the pipsqueak. "We've been professionals on the subject of murderers for a long time now. Better than any policeman. And for our human to have run to a shrink about it, I mean, what's her problem?"
Hermine's not a shrink. She's a psychologist, I objected.
"It's the same thing,"
grumbled Pearl. "And she works with animals, not people."
"Animals don't need a shrink," Pearl said, still furious. "Except for that feathered creature, maybe."
And she gave Egon a withering stare. She looked delightful, as she always did when she was excited. Her tiny nose twitched animatedly, her whiskers vibrated, her baby blue eyes sparkled with wild emotion. But woe betide the foolish creature who might tell her how cute she appeared in such a guise. I would call them weary of living, indeed. Usually, Pearl liked to play up her cuteness factor, and she was a past master of using her kitten look, fluffy white fur, sky blue eyes, dwarf size, to her ultimate advantage. But when she was angry, as now, she wanted to be perceived as a massive, dangerous royal tigress. Good-natured dog that I am, I usually did her the courtesy of looking impressed rather than amused.
"Daft dog! Daft cat!"
Egon exclaimed again, also in the language of humans. Of course, he could have communicated with us much more easily in the way that all animals do amongst themselves, but this bird thought he was something better. He acted almost as if he had mastered only the bipedal language, and no animal languages at all, which, of course, could not be further from the truth. And as for his choice of words, daft seemed to be one of his absolute favorites. I had already lost count of how many times he had hurled this bit of invective at us since we had moved into Hermine's quarters. We'd only been guests here at the house for 2 days, but we had already learned more about African gray parrots in general and Egon in particular than the most patient dog, I, could bear. Not to mention our resident cat diva, Pearl. Patience was almost entirely missing from her vocabulary, and she wanted nothing to do with parrots, unless you served her the bird grilled. The little glutton.